This is the data set of 208 results from testing of MRSA samples for antibiotic resistance. The first thing that we're going to do is learn how to take a random sample of any given size. So you should begin by opening your data set that has the numeric values of the data that we have created. If you have not yet created the numeric values, then go back through the last module and make sure you create the numeric values. You know that they're numeric, they are right, justified, and JMP, and we have missings instead of the insufficient data. And it's very easy in JMP to take a sample of data, and this can come in handy in any number of situations. But you will need to be able to take a sample of 30 for a worksheet and for homeworks coming up later. So pay close attention to how to do this in JMP. The first thing that we want to do is make sure that we're not taking a sample that includes missing data. We want actually a sample of completed data. So in our case, what we want to do is actually select the percent resistant column, go to the tables menu and press subset, and then click on selected columns. So I simply want the selected column of the percent resistant. I'm not going to change the name right now because I'm actually not going to end up saving that data set, but you could enter in a new name here if you wanted to. So I just want to select my column of percent resistant and press OK. And you'll see that gives me a data table of 208 rows with simply the percent resistant. And that means I won't have to worry about changing my original data. I can now work with this subset of 208 rows, but only one column. And if I make a mistake, I can close out and then go back to my original data and try again. So from here, with my column of just the percent resistant, I want to remove the missing values. And so I'm going to go into the rows menu, to row selection, and I want to select where. And when the window comes up, I'm just going to click on percent resistant and then leave this blank and press add condition and press OK. And you will see my 31 that we had known here to be missing. And now I'm going to press rows menu and delete rows. And now you can see I'm down to my 177 rows of the data. The reason that I didn't delete them from the main data set is, remember, I want to keep track of what areas, what states, and what years had missing data for summary purposes. So I didn't want to remove it from the original data set because then I wouldn't be able to get it back. So that's why we created a separate subset of just the percent resistant data. And now I've removed the missing from here. And from this subset, I want to then create my random sample of 30. This is very straightforward to do. So now we need to select our random sample of 30, and there are two ways to do this in JMP. We can go back to the rows menu, row selection, select randomly, and a new box will come up asking you for the rate or the size. If you put in a value less than 1, so say I put in 0.7, it will randomly sample 70% or 0.7 proportion from my sample. Or you can simply type in a number like I have here of 30 and press OK. And JMP will randomly select 30 of the rows. And as you scroll through, you can see that it took me down to row 13 and then 17 and then 21, 22, and 23 got randomly sampled, and then there's some spaces. So it will randomly select them for you. From here, I'm going to go to the tables menu and click on subset. And now I actually just want to say that this is my percent resistant N30 data. and press OK, and you can see that I now have a sample of 30 with my percent resistant, and I'm actually going to change this column name to reflect that it's my sample rather than my full data set, and save here. So you can save this as its own data set. Now, when you create your sample, it's important that you save it, because if you need to go back to it and you pick a new sample, you won't get the same values. In fact, let's go back to our sample of 177 and we'll walk through the second way to get a random sample. So the first thing we did was row selection, select randomly, but we could also go to the tables menu, subset, and it brings up a window, and under the subset window, you also have the option of a random sampling rate or a random sample size. I want a random sample size of 30, and I'm going to press OK. And you can see I got another random sample size of 30. It's important for you to know, if you look at our second sample of 30 compared to our first sample of 30, that they are not the same. JMP did, in fact, pick some different rows. The only difference between using the rows menu to sample and the tables menu to sample is when you use the rows menu to sample, you get to see the samples that were selected in the original data set before you make it a subset. If you use the tables menu to get your random subset, then it will just create a new data set for you. So if you want to review the rows that JMP picked for you in your original sample, then you need to do it using the rows menu. If you simply want a quick sample, then the tables menu is slightly faster. It's neither here nor there, actually. We just need a random subset of 30. I'm not going to save the second one I did, and I'm going to save the first one that I did. We can, from there, I'm going to close out the rest of my data. From there, we could actually look at the distribution of our sample. Press OK, and we'll compare it to the distribution of our original data of 177. And we can look at these side by side. And you can see then you'll start to be able to make the comparisons that are in the notes based on your samples. And we can see here that we have 177 in our original population and 30 in our sample. And you'd be able to look at the means and see if they're different. In the next video, we will talk about actually testing these means. So make sure that you save your sample of 30. My sample of 30 here is different from the sample of 30 in the notes. In the next video, my sample of 30 will be the same as the sample of 30 in the notes. Make sure that you save your sample of 30 so that you can follow along in the next video.